Hey guys, we are back with event-driven architecture. In this video, we are going to explore how to implement notification events using Spring Cloud Stream and Apache Kafka. Before we jump into the code, please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Your support means a lot to me, guys. Please leave a like and subscribe. Now, let's go. Now, first, we need to remember that notification event is just an event-driven pattern that allows the producer to send messages with minimal information. So just putting that something has happened. Mostly, this event only contains metadata. The message contains, for example, event type, correlation ID, the unique identifier of this domain event, and also, for example, the moment that this event occurred. And then, as we can see here, we will have some consumers. For example, in this case, our consumer, which is the decision microservice, will consume the event. So most of the case, if it needs the full picture or the information, for example, about this event, for example, here we have customer address changed, and we don't have here the zip code, for example, the location, the country, or the street, or something related to this event, right? So if the consumer microservice need the full information, it can just, for example, call the producer microservice in order to get the full information. So now let's move to the practical example. So here we have our microservice, which is the customer microservice. Guys, this is the same microservice that we have been using all the time, okay, in our videos. So this is the producer microservice, and in this video, the Git branch is feature notification event pattern. So you can find the source code of this project in the description of this video. So you will have the GitHub link where you can just clone this project and start using it. Now, the customer microservice, it's a simple Spring Boot application. As we can see here, we are using the Spring Boot 3 with Java 21, okay? And we have here some dependencies related to test containers, Spring Cloud Stream, Apache Kafka. In terms of database, we are using MySQL. So guys, if you just go to our videos related to microservice and Spring Cloud Stream, you will find everything you need. Now, in terms of project structure, what we have here is very simple, okay? So we have here our layered application, very simple. So first we have here our controller. As you can see, guys, we are just exposing a REST API, okay, which allow us to create some resources. So in that case, we are just going to create a customer. So we just receive, as you can see here, some information, okay, related to the customer. As we understand as best practice, okay, we just using the DTO. In our case, the DTO is just a Java record, as you can see here. And then we receive this request, we map the DTO to a domain object, okay? As we can see here, this is our domain object. Very simple use case, guys. I will share with you guys here all the steps that we use, all the videos that we use to create this microservice. So here is where the things start getting interesting. So we receive the request and we call the customer service in order to create the customer. So here is where everything starts making sense. So in order to create the customer, first we save the customer in our database using a simple customer repository, which just extends a JPA repository. It's very simple, right? So now, after creating the customer, as we can see here, new customer, we just move, let me go here, okay? We are just going to produce the event. So we have created here an interface, which is customer event. So this interface is a sealed interface. If you understand Java 21, or I think it's Java 17, yes, it's Java 17, we have the sealed interface. So the sealed interface, we have here some records, okay, and here we have the customer created event. So this is the record that we are going to use in order to identify, okay, that a customer was created. We are going to use this record, okay, in order to publish the events. So going back here, we just mapping, right? So we are just creating the customer created event. As we can see, we will have the customer ID, we will have the created at, we are going to have also the event type and the source. I will explain to you what is the source. So for example, if we are going to produce an event, actually we can, for example, add some more metadata, for example, the source itself. So the source will allow the consumers to invoke this microservice later. So this is just what we are concatenating here. So this is the base path, which represents the API. Then we have here the V1, which is the version, and then the customer. And then we just add here the new customer ID. So after that, we are going to save this instance, okay, the customer created event, in our database. So we are going to insert it into our database in order to apply the pattern called by transaction outbox. Okay, so this is the pattern. So guys, I don't want to make it complicated, but you really need to understand what is transactional outbox pattern. So what we have done is just the fact that we persist the customer into database, then we write also the event that we want to publish in our database. So in that order, everything happened within the same transaction. Then we are going to have a scheduler or cron job or worker that will fetch every single record that we have here in our database, and then it will just publish the message to Apache Kafka or other messaging system. So guys, this is what we are doing here, okay? So this is what we are doing here. So we just create the outbox message, we save it into our outbox message repository, and then we return the customer created ID. So actually, let me go back here on our controller. So actually, when you do that, even in RESTful API, most of the time, guys, people would say that in RESTful API, when you create a new resource, you don't need to return the newly created resource within, for example, the response body. Most of the time, people say that, okay, you just need to return the resource location. So this is something that we are going to see. Guys, now, enough talking, let's run our application. So in order to run this application, you just need to follow here, for example, some examples. You will need to run first the Zookeeper, the Kafka, and also the AKHQ. So why? Because Kafka depends on Zookeeper in this version, and also the AKHQ is our Kafka graphical user interface, which will allow us to see, for example, the messages, the topic, and so on. So now guys, you just need to run, okay, all these containers. For example, I have here the Kafka, Zookeeper, MySQL, and also AKHQ, which is the stack that we need, right, to have running on our machine in order to make this microservice working. Now, here is very simple. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to run my application because I have already Kafka, Zookeeper, MySQL, and also AKHQ, okay, running as container. So now, as we can see here, our application is running on the port 8283. So now this is the time that we need, for example, let me just stop what we are going to do here. Let's just run in debug mode in order to make it better for you guys to understand this very simple use case. So first, let's put it here, a breakpoint, and then we are going to put, for example, another breakpoint here, and maybe let me go back here. Okay, we are going to put here another breakpoint. So in order to make you guys understand the way that we are publishing events, also let me go just here, okay, here in the event publisher, and I will just put a breakpoint here. Okay, so just like this. And yes, so now let's run our application. All right, so the application is running. Okay, as you can see here, the port is 8283. Now the next thing that we can do, let's just go to Postman. So now let's just go here, let's just paste here, okay, the correct port, as we can see here. Now we are going to create a new customer. Okay, the first name is Jeff, the last name is Bezos. Everybody know. I don't know if this is the correct last name, but I don't care. Okay, now, okay, as we can see, so let me just minimize this. So when we try to create the customer, we can see that we are going to receive a customer. So the next step is the fact that we are going to create the customer here, as we can see in database. So we have just created a new customer. We have associated the first name, the last name, the birth date, and so on. Guys, So just one quick example. You need to go to our videos in order to understand everything that we have done here, because some people can say, okay, so you are not validating the customer or something like that. So we try to use the rich domain, okay, which is the domain driven design concept, and we use, for example, the entities and also the value object. Okay, so all the logic resides on our entities and value objects. The business logic resides on our domain. Okay, so now after that, after creating the customer, as we can see here, okay, using the JPA repository, we can see the customer ID is 1. Then we start here creating our event. So we just instantiate the event. As you can see, this is what we have explaining you guys. So the customer created event will contain minimal information. Instead of having, for example, all the data related to the customer itself, for example, here we have the name is Jeff Bezos, okay? I don't know if it's Bezos or Bezos, I don't care, bro. Instead of having all the information related to the customer, we are just sending the minimal information. This is, of course, an example, because in your real use case, in a real world application, you will have a customer with more data, for example, financial information, social security information, and everything related to the customer, cards and so on. But for us, let's just keep it simple. Now, this is the place that we have here, our customer create event. So we have minimal information, as you guys can see here. And now remember the event type, which is customer created, and also the source. So the source is optional, right? But I think it's a nice way to indicate to the consumers later that, okay, if you want the full picture, if you want the full information about this customer, just get it from here. Now, after that, we just use the outbox pattern. So we just instantiate it, right? And then we persist to our outbox table, and then we are just going to return, okay, the customer, and later we are going to publish the event. So this is what we have here, for example, okay, delivering events. As we can see, okay, we are just delivering this event here with the information. Now, if you go back to Postman, okay, we can see this is something that I have been discussing with people. Do we really need to do that? So instead of returning, as we can see here, guys, so we have created a customer. Instead of returning the full information, we are just returning the URI location, so the resource location. Okay, so set it in the headers. So here we can see the location. If you want the full picture of this customer, just find it here. So this is what people have done, and I think it's okay. And also the HTTP code will be 201. Okay, now for example, if we try to get the customer, let's try. So let's put it here, move it like this. Okay, so let me see. Localhost. Okay, so guys, the location has a problem. It should be like this, API first. Okay, I will fix it later. But as you can see, guys, okay, this is what we have here. Really, we need to fix it. We are missing here the API. Now, this is the part that we need to go to our AKHQ. So AKHQ is our Kafka user graphical interface. So if we refresh it, okay, we will see that we have here a topic, which is customer. And if we go here, for example, we can find that we have here an event. So we have here the event, which is this one here, which contains the minimal information. And here we have the customer ID. We have the moment that the event was created. Okay, the event type. And also here we can see, guys, here is right? So we have API v1, customer ID 1. So the consumers, if they want to find, okay, if they want to fetch the full information, they can just go here in the source, okay, in this URI. So another thing that I would like to show you guys is that it's a best practice to also add some, or to enrich the headers with metadata. For example, here in our case, we have also the correlation ID, the content type, which I think Spring Cloud Stream put it by default, okay, and here we have, okay, the type of event. Guys, this is amazing, guys. You just need to explore or go to our previous videos. You will understand this. So this is what the producer microservice does. It just creates a customer. Then it sends an event saying that, okay, customer created, minimal information. This is a notification event or event notification. It's the same thing, okay? Minimal information, leaving the consumers to consume the event. And if the consumers want the full picture or the full data, okay, they can just go here in the source and find the data. And yes, I think that's okay, right? That's okay for now. Let's see. Okay, this is the producer one. If we try to get the information, okay, we will see. Sorry guys, this is not like this. Okay, so the body doesn't matter. What matters is this one. Of course, if we try number 2, we don't have number 2. But if we try the with ID 1, okay, we can find. So guys, now we are here on our consumer microservice. So let me show you the project. The project seems the same, okay? So we are using Java 21, we are using Spring Boot 3, okay? And also, for example, the database is MySQL, and we are using Spring Cloud Stream, of course, and Apache Kafka. So what we have here on our consumer microservice. So the consumer microservice is very simple. The consumer microservice is using also Spring Cloud Stream. The consumer microservice is the one that we have using since the beginning of this channel. This is the same microservice, which is decision microservice, as you can see here. Okay, the name of microservice is Decision Microservice, which is a consumer. It's using Spring Cloud Stream. Guys, we have videos related to producing and consuming the events using Spring Cloud Stream. So let's move, for example, here. The first component, okay, is the customer message handle. Why? Because we are going to handle the customer event, right? So in that order, for example, we are using Spring Cloud Stream function, okay, approach, and we are using this functional interface. You guys already know, for those that are old in this channel. So here is the event handler. So we just receive, okay, one or more events. We are using the consumer in batch mode, so we can receive one or more events. After that, we are just going to log that we are consuming the event notification. And then we specify here, which is the customer created event. And later we are going to use a customer proxy in order to fetch for the full information. So if you remember, when we use the event notification, we just publish the event with minimal information, with just metadata. And later, if the consumers need, they will just fetch the full information using a identifier or correlation ID or something like that. So in our case, we just have this customer proxy. We're just using a simple proxy, which goes, for example, here, okay, we have just created here a REST client. So in that order, we are going to map it, okay, as we can see here, the best URL is just API v1 customer, and later, based on the customer ID that we receive in the event, what we are going to do here is that we are going to invoke, okay, the customer microservice passing the customer ID. So let's go back here on the event handler. Okay, so this is what we have. Okay, we're just going to use the proxy in order to fetch the information, and then we are going to do our business logic, which is something that we have done in the previous videos. So now let's run our application consumer. So this is the consumer microservice. And now we are going to see that we are going to consume the event. So as we can see here, okay, we are consuming the event, okay, so just like that. And for example, if we just go here in the console, we can see that we are logging, okay, consuming the event, customer created event. So if we go to AKHQ, we will see that for this particular topic, which is customer topic, we have already a consumer, which is decision microservice. So we have a consumer microservice. So after consuming the event, what we are going to do here, let me put here a breakpoint. So the next thing is that we are going to use, okay, the ID, where we get the ID. So if you remember, the customer created event, okay, brought, okay, the ID. So we have the ID, we're just going to invoke the customer, and after that, okay, we are consuming, as we can see here. So here we can see the logs, okay, so decision microservice, assign the partition, and then we start consuming the event notification customer created, okay? And then now invoking the customer microservice, fetch customer with ID 1, which is the customer that we have just received previously. And then what we have done here is just the business logic, which is not the point of this video. Let me stop this microservice. Let's go back to producer microservice. Let me just remove here all breakpoints, okay, because we don't need breakpoints anymore. And as we can see here, for example, okay, we have only one event. Now, let's create another customer. Now this time it will be Elon Musk. So this is the Elon Musk. And then we can create, okay, let me check. As we can see here, now we have the new customer with the ID number 2. So the body has nothing. HTTP code is 201 created. And if we go here on our, let's say, AKHQ, Kafka, okay, we can see that a few seconds ago, someone created an event. So we have here the customer created, okay, with ID. The customer ID is 2. Let me start the consumer microservice in debug mode, okay. So what we are going to do here is a part of the Elon Musk event. What I'm going to do here is, let me put here a breakpoint. Okay. Now let's start the producer microservice. So this is the producer microservice, which is customer, right? And this is the consumer microservice. So in that order, let's go to Postman. Let's create here a new customer, Steve Jobs. Apple, okay, so let's just create the customer. Okay, now we can see that our consumer microservice, okay, is trying to consume the new event. If, for example, we stop the producer microservice, going back here on the consumer microservice, we will see that we need to fetch the data. So here, if we try to fetch the data, for example, after consuming the event, what will happen here is the fact that, okay, so let's go back here. Let's see the logs. Okay, we have a failure. So what I'm trying to explain to you guys is the same, right? So for example, when we are using notification events, okay, sometime when we need to get or when we need to fetch the data, so first we have the extra network traffic because we have multiple consumers. And for example, we have also the latency, but it's not the point, okay? What I'm trying to prove you guys here is this one here. So for example, here we can have an available service. In our case here, as we can see, as we create, for example, a problem, when we shut down the producer microservice, the consumer microservice, after consuming the event, tried to reach the producer microservice and it got exception because the producer microservice wasn't available, okay? So this is what we have here. Connection refuse or connection timeout or something like that, of course, right? So this is bad, right? This is what we were telling you guys in the previous videos, that we have here a hidden coupling. The consumer microservice will not work properly if the producer microservice is down. So this is what we were explaining in our last video. And having this kind of failures here, can cause cascading failure. So this is the implementation. Let me just go back here. Let me move from the presentation mode. So remember guys, I'm not telling you guys that don't use notification events or use notification events. Of course, when we were talking about the availability of the producer microservice, there are some patterns that can solve that problem. But here, the main point is the notification events. So we are talking about the trade-offs. Okay, so we have here advantages and disadvantages. You need to choose what is better for your use case, your business, or your system, or your feature. So guys, there is not a silver bullet that can solve all the problems. Trade-offs, always think about that. I hope that you enjoyed this video guys, and please leave a like, subscribe if you haven't yet. Yeah, leave a comment. And now let's move to the next video and see you. Bye bye.